Hope everyone's doing well. Apologies for my slow production of videos over the past few weeks, but I had to kind of focus on the PhD for a bit. Today has been lovely and I went out for lunch, hence the makeup, so I've decided to not procrastinate making informative videos anymore. I've always marketed myself as someone who's doing a PhD, so I thought I'd share some more information that only people who are doing or have done a PhD would know. So today we're looking at PhD applications, and it's not a typical video focusing on how to apply, what to apply, etc. But I really want to tell you reasons why you shouldn't do a PhD. In other words, if you want to or are thinking of applying for a PhD for these reasons, then you really should think twice before you actually apply. So the first reason, I think to me it's the most intuitive reason, and that is you want to apply because you've always excelled in school, or you've always been good at taking exams, you had good grades, you might have done a master's as well, and now you're thinking, oh, so since there's more degrees to get, I might as well get it. And sometimes people think that since a PhD degree is the highest degree that you can get, then you should just continue studying and get it. I feel like this might be a more typically Asian mindset, because in our upbringing, we're always pushed to do well in school, get ahead, and I think people have still not really realized the realities of 学历贬值. How'd you say that? Degree inflation, that's the word. I think Gen Z and younger generations might have realized it, but for parents, millennial, for older adults and above, they still have this tendency to think that the higher your highest degree, the better your future job prospects, but it's not necessarily true, and you shouldn't really apply just because it's the highest degree. The second reason, which is very much linked to that, is you want to do a PhD because you don't know what else to do, because you don't really know how to apply for actual jobs. Or you may know or not, but you just don't want to apply for jobs. You still want to be a student, you don't feel ready for real jobs yet. You want to avoid entering the real world, the world of the adults. The third reason could be controversial, and it really depends on the program, the area, everything. But don't do a PhD just because you want to earn more money, and don't automatically assume that it's going to advance your career. For some industries, jobs, or sectors, a PhD could be helpful, like the life sciences or machine learning, for example. Doing a PhD can actually help you secure more senior level and better paying jobs, but for others, it will only hinder you from actually getting started with your career. If you're looking for one of those jobs, after 3, 4, 5, 6 years, when you're out of a PhD, you realize you haven't gained much transferable skills and you are 3, 4, 5, 6 years behind your peers in the career path that you wanted to pursue, and you will feel miserable by then. So really think about your career before deciding to apply. Next reason, you shouldn't apply for a PhD for the prestige or because you want people to respect you. Because what you might experience during those critical years of your life might be completely not worth it if you're only going for the prestige or respect. Like, for example, if you're not actually a good fit for the program, or if you're just not suitable to take on a PhD challenge, and you only have this transactional, surface level, extrinsic motivation, it's going to be hard. I might talk about motivation later on in another video, but you really do need something from within to drive you through a PhD. So if it's only for prestige, if it's only to get a doctor title, think about it. Ask people, ask ChatGPT, whatever. Next reason could also be controversial. Some people want to do a PhD for a stable life/career. So they might not want to climb the corporate ladder, and they think that, working as a researcher at universities can be quite an easy life, and you don't have to deal with workplace politics, you don't have to always fight for promotions, you just learn stuff in a PhD and then do your research. Sounds perfect. But actually, academia might not be what you assumed or thought. There can also be a lot of politics, side-taking. I've also heard of beef between professors. And importantly, in this job market, you also have to fight for positions, research assistant positions, if you can't get into a PhD program straight away, and you never know when it's going to be your lucky day. Or to get into the PhD program, And once you're in the PhD, you don't know if you have a good supervisor, you don't know if the topic is fruitful enough. There are a million things that you can't predict that might happen, which might already make your life rather unstable. And after finishing the PhD, you're basically like a contractor if you want to do postdocs. And you often have to be willing to move places because at each university or research institute, the positions are really limited. And in the past few years, there's been a lot of funding cuts, I think. So there's generally less money supporting research, at least for governmental funds. And I've also heard of people wanting to do a PhD to take a break from their corporate career. And this is usually out of the motivation to take care of one's mental health, because you might be burnt out from your previous job. You're sick of listening to your boss being micromanaged or working like a robot, 9 to 5, 9 to 9, 997, I don't know. But as I've hinted before, how well a PhD goes really depends on the program, the supervisor, the location, the support, and luck. If any of those doesn't go well, you are going to suffer more. You're going to question your decision. And it's just very different. You might value autonomy, but when you're given too much autonomy, you might panic, stress, because no one's there to hold you accountable. And even if you're free of the worries from your corporate life, you also have new worries about academic life. For example, is your PhD going to be funded? If not, do you have enough savings? Are you moving to a completely new country, new place? How does the PhD align with your stage of life? Do you have a partner? Do they want to move with you? Are you planning to have a baby if you're a woman? And how is that going to fit within your academic timeline? So hopefully you would have gathered by now that there are a lot of caveats when it comes to doing a PhD. Not all of those are from my personal experience. I've obviously heard things, seen stuff happen, but I just want to point out the caveats so that for anyone who's thinking about doing a PhD, you should really make sure you're making an informed and well thought of decision. If you want to know more about reasons why you should do it, it's like if you have these things in mind, then you should definitely do it. Please let me know. So yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you find it helpful, informative, or fun to watch.